Welcome, the show is about to begin.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
And then, as we're leaving, we're in the third row from the back in the theater. And all of a sudden, right in front of me, this little short guy, he was like my height, I'm 5'2", gets up in the face of this bigger guy, like pushing his chest against his chest, going, "You took a picture of me! You took a picture of me!" And he starts like shouting at this guy, and then the other guy is like, "You weren't wearing your mask, so I took a picture of you."
Wow.
And
Vigilanteism.
we're like half a block from home. The theater's only like maybe 3 blocks from my house. We're like half a block from home, and all of a sudden I hear the little guy yelling again. He's like literally yelling down the street after the other guy, still like insane with rage that this guy took his photograph. So I mean, I just want to say that if you see someone not wearing a mask, the appropriate behavior is to go and find a manager, quietly tell them where the person is sitting, and return to your seat.
And let them deal with it.
And let them deal with
Yeah,
it. Exactly. Like, that is their job. It was ridiculous. It was completely ridiculous.
This is the new norm, man. This is what you're going to have to contend
So
with.
this was at the end of the movie? After the movie was over, this happened?
When they started, like getting up in each other's face and all that stuff. But whatever the non-compliance, the mask non-compliance apparently occurred during the film. And like I said, I don't know, because people take down their masks because they're eating. Like, you may not be able to see if they're eating, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you might just see from the back that their mask is down for whatever reason. So I don't know why that other guy took his photo.
Big movies like this, they're bringing in that fringe element to your music box. I don't know.
They definitely are.
They're probably jumping the border from another state. Out of staters. Now I'm going to cancel my tickets. I'm not going there.
You guys have to tell me.
I'm not ready to deal with
how your
competition.
tenant experience.
So they're both wearing masks to just sound like when they're up in each other's faces.
Right, exactly. Yeah, whatever. I don't know. I'll be happy to report that both movies I saw this week, everyone in my theater not wearing a mask. Because we were
in your home
theater. In your home theater.
In my home theater. You know, I turned my phone off too. This guy had his phone on just so he could take a picture. Now I'm thinking about this.
Yeah. I know.
He was waiting.
I also have my phone off during the movie because that's what you're supposed to do. I mean, I like to have my phone off and like engage in something for a few hours.
I will tell you, when I saw what was the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds, I had my phone and my wallet, and I always tuck them in a little cup holder. And it was a pretty packed theater, and my keys, because I can't stand sitting on anything or have anything in my pocket.
Yes.
And halfway through the movie, I reached over and my wallet's gone. And now I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm trying to stay with the movie, but now I'm like patting down the seat behind, trying to find it, and I was like slowly losing my mind. So I did.
Was it under the seat? That's the worst thing, when something falls on that nasty, sticky.
Yeah, Skylar lost a
floor.
ring once, and we tore the place up and couldn't find it. So, rip.
Really? I've always managed to find whatever I've dropped, but it's not a fun experience.
But a ring like that could have just bounced away.
And we had
Yeah.
3 aisles
Or,
up, 3
yeah,
aisles
if it's,
over. We had people with us, and
Yeah,
we
if
just
the
couldn't
floor
find it.
is slanted at all, then it's gonna.
It was tiered. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, oh man, woo. So let's see. What are we talking about
So
this week?
yeah, we had at-home watching this week. We didn't
We
have
did.
to go risk life and limb. Not until next week. We're gonna do that again.
Wait, are people listening to us right now?
They've been listening to us.
Oh, I should have brushed my teeth.
They heard all about the fight, all about Jeff's house.
You're gonna cut all that out. Although I want to thank you for leaving in the Candyman comment.
Oh yeah, I said I would. I
Yeah, you
made
said
a
you
promise
would.
there.
Yeah.
That's right.
Well, I found some.
Here's the thing, too, is not only are you going to be watching the new Candyman, you have to watch the old
Apparently,
Candyman.
just so I can compare it.
Maybe we have to just
They're
pair those
related.
two together. We have to pair those two together.
So I can
just to
compare
make
and
sure
contrast.
that he watches both.
You guys are evil.
Jeff is going to call us crying. What did you Actually, speaking of horror, I have a request
Oh, jeez.
for
What?
October. I'm not gonna.
Okay.
It's not gonna hurt you, Jeff. You're gonna like it. Okay. So for any, I'm sure we'll do more than one horror movie in October. Okay. I'm sure at some point it will come up, and I humbly request that we pair it with Paranorman.
Ooh, I'm in for that.
I've never seen Paranorman.
What?
Is the type of movie
What?
that I've seen the preview for at the beginning of DVD a million times.
Oh, you gotta watch Paranorman.
But I've never actually watched the movie.
You were actually the first person I thought of when I saw the preview for Paranorman, because I was like, this kid could have been Jim.
Oh, really?
Jim's made out of clay.
No.
He's a clay dude.
Does he decry running zombies at any point?
He
during-
loves all zombie.
Yes, and they love him.
And it's one of my favorites. I watch it every year in October, and I would love to pair it with anything that we're watching in October.
Anything.
Yeah. And it won't hurt Jeff. He'll
No,
be okay.
I will like that. Paranorman's a great movie.
Speaking of October, is Wonder Woman still slated for release in
Yes.
October? That has not moved.
As far as we know, it has not.
So after Tenet, that will be our next in-theater feature.
Speaking of Tenet, the international box office is now past 100 million.
That's good,
Yeah,
right? That's good.
that's really good. And considering theaters are not open
Yeah.
everywhere.
Do you know what it did in the U.S. alone?
So I'm looking at right now the Deadline article about the box office and saying that Warner Brothers is playing close to the vest with numbers, and that the domestic details will be out tomorrow. I'm sure that
Yeah, let them eat all 3 days.
they don't want a projected number.
Well, that's a minute. The minute you put a number to opening weekend, you're like, well, based on you're going to get. But it may be a slow burn because you may get more theaters open, more people invest in it.
So I'm really, really curious to see what the weekend box office is here, considering only maybe 2,500 theaters are open nationwide. I mean, because with New York closed and LA closed, that's 20% of the market.
Right. Easily.
Right there. So
Speaking of New Mutants, critics are using any means necessary to denigrate the New Mutants. One of the headlines I saw about Tenet was, "Oh, let's see what it does at the box office now that there's a movie out the audiences want to see." And
oh no.
Wow.
That's
hard.
horrible. That's horrible.
it is.
Go see New Mutants and decide for yourself.
Correct.
Yes, we all three of us recommend New Mutants before we move on to Mulan today. But it sounds like
Mulan?
we're deeply in the news.
We are
so-
deep. I only have one news item, so
Okay.
we can kind of keep going from there. Somebody just posted on one of these podcast groups, do we have a structure and do we follow it? I'm like,
No.
we try. I said, Jim does you know what? Jim is the unsung hero of this show because you are very cutting in your
I suppose
editing.
if you are a listener of more than one of our episodes, then you will expect certain features and lead-ins. So I do try to give
And you do
somebody
try to keep us on track. It's like herding cats. I know. So here we go. The Batman, Robert Pattinson. Kids, this is what happens when you don't wear your mask properly. He has COVID.
We can't have nice things. We can't.
Nope. Not that I was.
Yeah.
Regardless, the man tested positive, and so he's hiding out in the Batcave.
Here's the thing. If you know that they were taking every precaution because they don't want production to be shut down again, right? Because it's super expensive to shut production down. If they can't keep the star of a humongous movie safe with all the protocols and all the testing and all the stuff that they're doing on these sets, how is anyone else supposed to return to normal life ever? I mean, not for nothing, but I definitely would not be sending my kid to school right now if Robert Pattinson can't be safe on the set of Batman.
But who knows what he's doing? He might think he's the star and be, I don't know.
Maybe that weekend to Ibiza was ill-timed on Pattinson's
Maybe he was on Mars Island with Leto. That was the only news item I had.
Well, I have one news item, it's a personal news item.
Let's go.
So I'm so very crap at self-promotion, but I must contractually obligated to say that I have a new book out this week.
Whoop, whoop, whoop.
And by the time this episode is out, it will be in your bookstore. It is a coming-of-age horror story about a Midwestern town under a curse. One reviewer said it's like Stranger Things crossed with It. So,
do you like that when people take those comparisons?
It's a shorthand. I mean, I think it helps people find something that they already like.
I like it. I like Stranger Things. Maybe I like trees that are scary.
So The Ghost Tree is out now in all your bookstores.
Can I get it on Amazon?
You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Audible. You can listen to the audio.
Now, who does that?
Jan Johns is the narrator for this one.
Now, this is also widely available in Target stores, is it not?
Yes, it should be in Target as well. Target is going to include it in their Halloween book promotion. So I'm not sure when that promotion will start running, but if it's not in Targets now, it should be there in the next few weeks.
So nice. I ask our listeners to go, if they come across the end aisle display, take a picture with it.
Yes, please.
Send it to our email address, which is...
TMI Podcast 2018 at gmail.com. That is TMI Podcast 2018 at gmail.com.
You think I know that by now?
I still don't know our website address, so don't feel bad.
That's all right.
Tag us on Instagram or on Twitter. Actually, for anything. If you go to Tenant and you want to send us a picture of yourself in front of the movie theater and let us know what your theater experience would be like, that would be great.
I would like to know that. Very cool. Awesome. Well, good luck with that.
Yeah, I hope people like it. So
from the review I heard, I loved it. Couldn't wait to share it with his friends. So oh boy. All right. So what are we talking about this week? Oh, Mulan. Wow. Finally.
Yes, we actually did talk about Mulan already, but the Disney animated version, since this was taken away from us.
It was. So we were,
ages ago.
I'm happy that we got to review that and talk that, because I don't think you can watch this without comparing it.
Yeah, and I'd never seen the animated before we actually discussed it, so I'm doubly glad that we did do that. So this actually I was just reading some info about it. It actually made it to its Hollywood premiere back in March before it was summarily yanked. So now we have it. And we are going to give you our opinion. And we don't even know, because we're pretty good, actually, when we watch a movie. And even in a case like this where we're at home, we do not reveal our feelings. Christina has not told us anything about Tenet.
No, nor will she.
Been really
which
good.
I thank you for. Same with Mulan. So again, this is the story, if you're not familiar with this, the story of a Chinese girl who is tomboyish. She's one of two daughters of a very proud father, but he does not have any sons. And the Rorons, who are invaders, causing havoc everywhere, and it causes an imperial edict that one son from every family, one male from every family, will come out and fight the invading forces. And of course, our family does not have any sons. The father, who is old and crippled, he takes it upon himself to join the forces, to join the fight. But Mulan, the night before he leaves, takes his sword, takes his invitation to the army, the edict, and goes herself and disguises herself as a boy to fight the Rorons. And now the story here is basically the same as the animated story. And Christina, you'll have to remind me about the plot points of the original tale, because obviously we know how it differs and how it's the same with the animated version. And we did touch upon the original tale of Mulan in our first episode. I was hoping that you could shed some light on how this live action version compares.
Yeah, I mean, it's still closer to the animated version, which is actually based on a Robert Sansucci story. Obviously, the original Tale of Mulan is from a poem, and it was they date it roughly between like 386 to 535 AD. So it's basically 4th century China. It's called the Northern Wei, or the Three Kingdoms period. It was written by an anonymous poet. And it's actually been told and retold in almost every era of Chinese history. In a lot of ways, the story of Mulan in China is kind of like King Arthur in the West, where she was probably not a real person, but everyone likes to claim her. And even the origins of where she's from, or the various villains that are fought in the story, change through the various iterations over time. One of the things that's really, really interesting, and one of the huge differences actually from the Disney versions, both Disney versions and the original stories, is that first of all, in the Disney versions, she sort of sneaks off in the middle of the night, right? She's like grabs her father's conscription and his sword, and goes away. And then he says, "Oh no, I can't go and get her, because her life will be forfeit if they discover she's a girl." And in every version of Mulan in China, her parents know that she's going. And if they don't give her their blessing per se, they kind of understand the necessity of it, and they allow her to go. So there's no kind of, sneaking off without your parents' permission type of thing. And in fact, a lot of the versions of the story, her mother is sort of less concerned that she's going to die than that she might come home not a virgin anymore, because then she won't be able to get married. And she, two other huge differences in the original story and pretty much every version thereof in China. She's actually in the army for 12 years.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here it's like 12, not even days, hours, maybe.
She's in the army for 12 years, and she's never discovered. No one ever discovers that she's a girl. There's different versions of the story, and this actually plays a little bit into the matchmaker aspect, which I want to talk about in the Disney version, because we have a really different idea of what a matchmaker does in the West than what it does in the East. A matchmaker...
Do we even have matchmakers in the West? Do people exist?
They're called prying hands.
I mean, I think that certainly we have an idea of a matchmaker as someone who does an interview with you and then tries to find a suitable candidate to match you, right? I think that's how we think of a matchmaker.
Indeed.com?
Like eharmony.com.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. But in China, a matchmaker if Mulan's going to the matchmaker, that means she actually already has an offer of betrothal. And this is an interview basically to determine if she's an acceptable bride for the man who's already made an offer.
So it's like a realtor, right?
Sort of. As well, it's funny you say that, because it is a monetary transaction. They would pay, the husband's family would pay what's known as a bride price. They would pay money to her family in order to marry her. So it's a hugely important transaction for her family, because if she does anything to dishonor the family, to lower her market value, you might say, the bride price would be lower. And if it's not
magic beans in the offering.
And if it sounds like slavery, well, it kind of was.
Yeah.
One Chinese philosopher said that newborn girls should be placed under the bed in order to show their submission to men, and that a piece of broken pottery should be placed upon their chest in order to demonstrate their uselessness.
In a bowl of milk as
I
well.
was going to say Matt Trigger. Damn, that's harsh.
Yeah, so it is.
Wow.
It's
No wonder why they
deeply-
glossed over that.
It's a deeply misogynistic society in which women's value was literally in the home. Despite this, the story of Mulan persists, and she is considered heroic. But one of the reasons why she's considered heroic is because she is a perfect Chinese woman before she goes to war, and she's a perfect Chinese woman when she returns from war. So there's none of this thing where like she's rebelling again, like with the Western version, or she's sort of rebelling against her place and she doesn't want to sort of do what she's supposed to do. In every version of Mulan, she wears makeup, she is feminine, she actually has her feet bound. There's one play that was written, I think it was the 14th century. There's a scene in the play where she unbinds her feet so that she can wear the boots, so she can march as a soldier. She embodies the Chinese feminine ideal. She goes to war. She's a successful warrior. She becomes an officer. And then in different versions of the story, sometimes she falls in love with another soldier who, by the way, is her subordinate. He's below her, ranked below her. She reveals herself to him, and then they agree that after the war they'll get married. In other versions, she's already betrothed to somebody who she goes back and marries when she comes home. But always she returns home, puts her makeup back on, puts her robe back on, and she's the feminine ideal again.
I got that out of my system, and now I'm just going to go back to my servitude.
Because the whole thing is that the story is about her piety, in a sense, her devotion to her family and her devotion to her father and her devotion to her country. That is sort of those are the ideals of the story. And I think the Western versions are great, but they obviously that's not the same ideal. The ideal is more about who you are and finding your place, and if you're a square peg, how do you fit into a round hole, or do you just carve your own space for yourself? So the message is a lot different in the Disney story.
Right.
Yeah, and speaking of the beginning, and now how you were saying the original story, the parents were aware that she was going, that there was no subterfuge, in terms of that aspect anyway. And it occurred to me while watching this, because the father was so gung-ho about going, even though he knew it would mean certain death.
Well, he was a war vet.
He was a war vet.
You're right. So it wasn't like he was a farmer being forced into.
But as soon as Christina alluded to, as soon as they find out that she's gone, that the sword is gone, that she's gone to take her father's place, they do not follow her because they say that it'll bring dishonor and that our own people will kill her.
Well,
but
she also took the horse. So
she took the horse. So how do they explain him still being there?
With.
He's there, right? And everybody.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Like, hey, weren't you supposed to?
Right.
Go?
Correct. Yeah, it changed my mind.
Daughter. Yeah, they just kind of glossed over that. But
in both versions, you're right though. That is interesting.
If they knew about it, and maybe if the people knew about it, but
yeah,
I don't know.
I was upset to see that George Takei did not play the dad.
Was that a thing?
He was a voice. He was one of the spirits in the first one. Not that it matters one way or the other. I did like I thought the casting was really pretty impressive.
Yeah, Gong Li, who plays the witch, is probably like the greatest actress of her generation in China, and she's not as well known in the West as somebody like Michelle Yeoh, I think. But
Right.
if you've seen Raise the Red Lantern, Farewell My Concubine, or she was in one of my favorites, this absolutely baroque movie called Curse of the Golden Flower, which also stars Chow Yun-fat. She's incredible actress. I was just very excited to see her. And I liked the parallels that were drawn between her and Mulan.
I was just going to say that we're kind of traded. The big question on a lot of people's minds were they going to incorporate the character of Mushu? And of course they do not. We kind of knew that early on that the dragon was not. But in trade-off to the dragon, you get this witch character.
Oh, I thought the Phoenix was more in line with.
And the Phoenix.
Mushu, sidekick, always kind of there. I mean, obviously a little less snarky because he didn't really talk.
But yeah, the witch's character serves a really grand and great purpose. It's kind of a temptation to the character of Mulan. Like, I recognize that you're a great warrior and nobody else does. I was also an outcast. You can join me and we can rule everybody.
Yeah, like father and son, Luke and Vader. I liked her. I like this inclusion of this character because it did give her a female adversary, even though, and I will say, maybe because we paid for this, that my wife actually sat and watched it with me, and she called it from the beginning. She goes, "This witch is going to help her. She's not her enemy."
And that was the great thing, because it just shows the bond between them, that there is a bond between them.
Right, because she was pointing out that we're not so different. I was once you, and I really like this inclusion of this character.
And it's saying that there doesn't have to be just one powerful woman. They do not have to fight it out.
But let's talk about the fact. I mean, because to me, a witch is embedded in Old English Wiccan. I mean, did they really refer to people as witches back in AD? I mean, or are they just playing fast and loose with?
Well, there's probably a lot that they play fast and loose with.
Well, they're there.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because the original Mulan animated, it's not super clear like what era it's set in, because all the various things, like the Imperial City doesn't appear in China until like 1,000 years after the Great Wall does. So they're from completely different eras, and like things like the fireworks and stuff, it's like it's not super clear like what era it's supposed to be set in. And I noticed they didn't put a date on this movie either, so they're not,
which is fine. I mean, there's fantastical elements, and the one thing in this right off the bat, when you have the flashback to her as a kid, well, not flashback, it's how the movie starts, is the fact that it's like they keep referring to that she has these skills, these abilities, and you see it with her, falling off the roof. And at first it seemed a little hokey to me, and I'm like, it's wire work, but I don't know, maybe like she never really had that skill level in the animated movie. I mean, she was a warrior and she knew how to use a sword, but here she is, I mean, jumping off rooftops, and she's, flipping arrows with her feet. Visually, it is this movie is gorgeous to look at, and I wish I had seen it on the big screen, because the scenery just eats up, and the level of detail, and maybe because it's my TV, maybe because it's being streamed in 4K, I mean, the level of detail and the brightness was just very impressive.
Yeah, there is an epic scale here that even a big screen TV can't really.
No, and the camera work, some of the camera work, the opening scene. Now, again, in the animated version, they're Huns, but I guess that is about as inaccurate as you can possibly get. So they did change the bad guys, quote unquote bad guys, until, what'd you say they were? Rohans, or Rogans?
Rorons, I think.
Rorons.
Yeah.
Rorons.
And as you said, there's the initial scene with Mulan when she's at home and she's chasing the chicken, and she's, up on the roof, and then she saves herself after she falls. And there's a lot of wire work going on, but that's pretty par for the course here. As it goes on, the Rorons are running up the side of the wall, and maybe a little assistance from the witch, in that respect. But it's a whole bunch of wire work, and it is pretty fantastistical. But, it's just like watching Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. If you allow yourself to go with it.
Yes, yeah. This is the world we live in, and you just, it is a little jarring at first, but but again, the camera work, they, like you said, they just start running up the side of the wall, and the camera just tilts to follow them. And it's just like, it's seamless and it's clean. It takes on almost like Inception level, it just puts you right there. I don't know. Yeah, some of the camera work I thought was very impressive.
I mean, it has a lot of elements of wuxia film, which is the Chinese sword fighting, fantastic type of film, like Once Upon a Time in China, or like Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon you mentioned. Right. By the way, the matchmaker is played by Cheng Pei Pei, who is known and best in the West as Jade Fox from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
There you go.
And I've noticed that it borrows a lot of those elements from wuxia film, and obviously putting two of the greatest Chinese actors of like the last 30 years in this film is a nod to that tradition. Obviously, Donnie Yen.
Yep.
And Jet Li, who's a little bit wasted as the
He
Emperor.
is, right?
Yeah.
until the end, he gets a
But
nice
then
little
he
scene with her. But,
catches that arrow though. You know,
Yeah.
it's like, he's badass.
but you're right. You're right. He was a little underplayed, especially because you know who he is. So you're like, I know what you
Yeah.
can do, but
But I was so happy that I knew who Donnie Yen was once he came on. I'm like,
You're like,
yeah,
I
I know him.
yeah.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but I read a thing from the director Nikki Caro, talked about the day, you know, he was doing the demonstrations on set, you know, where he's in front of the army, and she had to do the filming twice. So because the first time he went so fast, the camera couldn't pick up the thing
really?
that he was doing.
Could you just slow it down a bit?
But obviously, like he's a wushu artist. He knows Wing Chun. He knows all kinds of sword fighting skills. Like he's just incredible. And Jet Li, like I said, a little bit wasted. Probably the greatest wushu artist of, I don't know how, you know, the last like 30, 40 years. So it was weird though, seeing him sitting on the Emperor's throne, especially if you've ever seen Hero, where he actually spends the bulk of the movie on the other side of the throne, right, kneeling in front of the Emperor, telling these stories. I just kept thinking of Hero throughout.
You talk about that training sequence too, and you know, anybody who knows the animated version, that song, you can't get that song out of your head. Make You a Man, and just like I missed it. I mean, I think some of the orchestral hit some of the beats of it, but you just want them to break out into the song. I'm sorry, and that's I think is missing.
I don't think it would have matched though. I think it would have.
Oh no, it is a completely different movie. But again, if you've seen Mulan the animated more than once or twice, like some of these songs play so large into her motivations and you know your feelings toward this character, and they're sorely missing in this.
What Jeff is talking about is where the songs in a musical are used as emotional shortcuts, where you can sort of hurry up the action and kind of like revelations, and that I really actually missed those scenes in particular. They have the characters from the animated version, Ling and Yao and Qianpo, right? And also a guy named Cricket, who's clearly supposed to represent the Lucky Cricket from the animated version. But I didn't really get the same feeling of their relationship as a friendship the way you do in the animated version. And one of the reasons why is because in the animated version, I'll Make a Man Out of You and A Girl Worth Fighting For are like sort of like shortcuts where you get to see the development of their relationship.
Yeah, because you get those montages, you get the I agree with you that those are emotional beats that are really missed. And
I really wanted to see. I feel positively about this movie, but there's a few things that I really disliked, and one of them is that this movie lacks a lot of the humor or charm of the animated film. There's one scene at the beginning, obviously, when she's going to the matchmaker and she's wearing the makeup, and she's like, and this is my expression when I'm angry.
Because I can't tell a differse. Neither can I. That's the point.
And this is my expression when I'm curious. And it's like a very funny little scene. You get this really quick sense of her relationship with her sister. But overall, there's just no humor. It's very serious. Like it takes itself very seriously.
Yep.
And I would have liked to seen a little more levity, again, a little more development of that relationship with her friends. I would have.
Yeah, any scene with her and the other troops is a relief in the heaviness of what's going on, because I think that they're trying to play the threat of the Rorons coming in and the darkness of the story. So I think that comes to the forefront a lot.
And I think they did a nice job of actually kind of fleshing out the Rorons a little bit. You know, Borikhan was just a bad guy with a hawk in the first one. You know, he was just he was a Hun. He was a plundering Hun. I thought that they at least gave you a little bit more of a motive for them, or not
funny
really.
that you say that, because I felt the opposite.
You felt
opposite. I thought Bori Khan was a very generic villain. Like, I got no sense of his personality. And when I think about Shan Yu in Mulan, even if his motivation is sort of more simplistic, just like, oh well, you know, there's a wall here, and you know, you put it in my way, and I'm gonna run it over. Do you remember when Shan Yu was like, how many soldiers does it take to deliver a message?
Oh, and then he shoots that. You're right.
And your blood runs cold, or when he's like, oh, that, you know, the hawk brings him the doll, and they're like,
yes.
oh,
you're right. Yeah, that is.
And that was missing. I missed that, actually.
You know, the hawk brings him the doll, and he's like, that little girl will be missing her doll, and you're like, no, like, don't go bring that little girl her doll.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, maybe they gave all those emotions to the Lady Hawk witch.
But that's the thing, is I thought that Bori Khan was underutilized here. He wasn't in it a lot, and it was
Jason
more
Scott Lee, by the way.
He was second banana to the witch in a lot of respects.
Yeah. And apparently Danny Trejo was not available that day, so we just.
But that was what I was missing, was like, Shan Yu has a personality, and like, you really see his cruelty, and you do not see that, I think, from Bori Khan. I think it's very sort of generic. I wasn't afraid of him as a villain.
No, I thought the witch was much more foreboding, because you didn't really know. You saw her power. Yeah. You know, and all those birds equals a lot of bird poop. So look out. But like, certain changes were made that didn't really, like why change her male name from Ping to Majun? Was it Wajun? Wajun.
Hua.
Wajun.
Hua. So it's Hua.
Okay.
Hua.
See, if you had the subtitles on, you would have known that.
I did. I turned them off. I did turn them off.
In the animated version, it's Fa, but that's only because Fa is the Cantonese version of Hua. I mean, they changed her name, but her name's been different things in the different versions of the.
I mean, I'm only comparing it to, you know, the animated version, which most people are. Most people are not well versed in the lore.
Actually, fun fact: in one version of the story, her name is Hua Mushu.
Oh,
yes, because her cousin, her male cousin, who is a cowardly blowhard, is the only other option for their family to send to war, and he's such an idiot that her father would rather have her go than his dumb nephew. So she takes his name, Mushu.
Okay.
Interesting. And was it just me, or did she seem to just apparate at the end when she has to get behind the catapult? Suddenly she's behind the catapult. Well,
that's like her getting beyond the beat. Right. Yeah. All of a sudden, it's like somehow she was able to ride the horse around that whole barrage to get behind the rock so she could force them to cause the avalanche. And then she was able to ride next to the avalanche.
Yeah. And that scene actually frustrated me too, because one of the reasons why the soldiers in the original animated version believe in Mulan is because they've seen what she's done, and they trust her when it comes down to it, when she says Shan Yu's threatening the emperor. And in this version of the story, no one actually sees what she does because they're all hiding under the shield.
Yes.
So I'm like, how would they even know that she's, you know, the reason why they survived? Because they can't even see what's happening. Yeah. Well, she didn't tell them, though, because she reveals herself as a woman right then. And then
banish her right then,
and they banish her.
Bye. Yeah, that whole
which comes after Donnie Yen, as the commander, says to her, "Cultivate your gift. Why do you hide it?" And then it's like, as soon as she's
hide it. Yeah, hey. Yeah, I take it back. Yeah, cover up those ankles too while you're at it. Yes, I did read that she did 90% of her own stunts. We haven't even talked about this girl,
Liu Fei.
Well, we didn't mention her by name.
I was going to say I am not going to.
I was waiting for Christina to get that one out.
She also sings the Mandarin version of Reflection at the end. If you listen all the way to the end of the credits.
Oh, very nice.
Multi-talented.
I thought she did a great job.
After the histrionics of Christina Aguilera's Virgin. It's,
You know, it was so funny. My husband kept saying, Christina Aguilera sang it in the original. I'm like, in the movie, it was Lea Salonga. And he's like, but Christina Aguilera sang it. I'm like, over the credits, but not in the movie. He was very insistent that it was Christina Aguilera. Like, the pop version was Christina Aguilera.
Oh, man. I'm sure, Jim, you have budget numbers.
I do not, actually.
I read that
it
was a 200 million production.
And
not entirely sure that it looks like 200 million, but I mean, again, the sets were pretty damn impressive. How much of that was practical versus...
It looks practical.
Yeah,
it does.
It did by and large look very practical, but you know what they can do nowadays.
And of course, the cinematography we mentioned before is beautiful. The colors in this are just so striking.
Yeah.
Really nice. By the way, did you guys recognize Ming-Na Wen?
Yes, I was going to bring it up. Yes.
At the end.
At the end.
Here.
Yeah. They had to sneak her in.
Because to me, she is Mulan.
Yes.
I was surprised that she didn't have a bigger role in this. Like maybe
I think she was still filming S.H.I.E.L.D. at the time, so it wasn't like they had to fly her in to her one day cameo.
Do that one, but at least she's there. So I was very happy to see her.
Yeah, apparently they couldn't get Eddie Murphy.
Did they try?
I don't think so. I did read that Ang Lee at one point was set to direct this.
Really?
But then I guess, production or whatever, and he was committed to another movie and had to bow out.
I think Nikki Caro does a good job.
Well, I thought it was, again, we talk, just technical. It is a spectacle. It is very well put together.
Yeah. I think, like I said, overall, the script, it just takes itself very, very seriously, and I would have liked a little more levity, a little more development of her other relationships, even her relationship with Hong Hui. I didn't feel super developed. It didn't even feel as well developed as her romance with Li Shang in the animated version. I think it would have made more of an impact on the big screen for sure. So, especially now that theaters are reopening, I think this is a little bit of a miscalculation on Disney's part. I think they should have tried to get it into theaters.
I mean, I guess there's a point where they had to make a decision.
Yes.
So, maybe in hindsight, you could say, if we just held up 2 more weeks.
And this is, as we know, this is just the latest in a very long line of Disney movies that are live action that were originally animated. And I think Mulan kind of lends itself to live action more so than something that needs to be CG'd into existence, like The Lion King or something like that.
But
based in reality and the epicness of it, I think deserves that live action treatment.
But I think it loses some of its charm, and I think that's true of all of the live versions. Yeah,
that could be argued for
I do not, Aladdin, fell flat for me because it doesn't matter who you put in that role. You can't replace Robin Williams. You can't replace. You've seen these movies over and over again, the animated. And you're talking about a live action Lilo and Stitch coming down the road, Little Mermaid. I don't know. I just, to me, most of these fall flat. Most of these live actions fall flat.
That's what I'm trying to say is that something like Mulan more lends itself to the transfer to live action than Aladdin or a Little Mermaid. That's all. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, I'm not.
I think it's a good movie, but I think this could have been a great movie with a few tweaks. I think it's a little short of great.
Yeah, well, I was entertained. I didn't think it was the greatest thing I'd ever seen.
I will just say this, which is, again, my wife, by and large, does not watch television with me. If she does, it's over the top of her book. And within 2 minutes, if she's not interested, she goes back. At the end of this, she said, I don't know how I feel about it. I have to see it again. So,
okay.
Right.
Yeah. That's
sometimes
fair.
You got to live with it because it is another adaptation of a movie that, is beloved, at least in this household. So take it for what it is.
I'm going 3. I'm going a solid 3 buckets.
I went a little higher. I went 3 1/4. the cinematography and the production values on this are very impressive.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's a 3. Like
Yeah.
but I see so much potential in this to be an amazing movie. Like I said, just with just a few tweaks, it could have been just unbelievable. And I do wish I'd had a chance to see it on the big screen.
Right,
Yeah.
'Cause
right.
I may have upped my buckets because that big screen experience can sometimes bring you an emotional,
It transports you too. You're
Yeah.
completely enveloped.
Especially if you're with an audience that's really into
Mhm.
the movie and
Right.
and you can sense that in the room that you're in. Sometimes that adds
Yeah.
a little
And the
bit of
one
atmosphere.
thing we didn't really bring into is the price point, because you do know that there's probably 100 reviews on IMDb and Rotten Tomatoes right now that start out with not worth the $30.
But again, like this is what I was saying. If you went to the movie with your whole family, like, and you had a family of 4,
Yeah.
it would have cost you $40.
You'd
just
be
to
Well,
paying
not only
more.
that-
You'd be paying more.
Not only that, you
Yeah.
own this.
Yeah.
Like it's not a one-time rental. This
Yeah.
is like going to the Best Buy and picking up the disc. You're not
Mhm.
getting bonus features. You're not getting anything else, but you do own this and you can watch it multiple
So
times.
it's part of your Disney Plus library.
Yeah.
Right.
I know people who bought it and haven't even watched it yet. I'll watch it next week. I bought it, but I'm not going to watch it yet.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see if Disney releases the numbers on this. Like, if how many subscribers
Right.
purchased it, like if they had a subscriber increase because people wanted to watch it. Really, really curious to see if they release those numbers or if they just don't tell
Gloss
us.
over them.
Yeah.
Well, they might
Yeah.
pull a Netflix and be like, "That's our business, not yours."
Or if they allow this to determine their release strategies in the future. We're still looking, wondering when Black Widow is really gonna
And
hit.
it's funny, you brought this up on the show previously, Jim, that this could set a precedent to the point where Disney says, yeah, maybe we are going to just start releasing this.
Do their
digitally.
theatrical releases on digital for
Yeah.
premium price?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I still think
I don't know either, but
I think they're probably leaving money on the table.
we just wait when Greenland drops. Gerard Depardieu. Oh no, not Gerard Butler.
Gerard
Not Depardieu.
Butler.
Butler. Sorry.
That would be a completely different movie.
That would be a great movie. Gerard Depardieu. What happened to that man? Where'd he go?
Him and Jean Reno are having dessert right now at a French restaurant.
Speaking of dessert. All right, so there you go. Mulan. We finally saw it. We finally reviewed it. And now we will never talk about Mulan again.
I feel kind of sad that we're not going to talk about it again.
Such a build-up.
It
That was our
felt
news
like-
item for months.
It felt like a friend on this show. We talked
Mulan.
about it so much. Same thing with Tenet. I'm going to be sad when that's over, too.
Yeah, that's it. We're moving on to bigger and better things, though.
Yeah. All right. So let's move on to the concession stand. Give the theater their money. And then we'll be right back with Nausicaa.
Bless you.
Flips, the new snack sensation. Flips, the crispy, crunchy chip with a zesty, tantalizing flavor all its own. And an airy lightness that's so satisfying, but not filling. We make them fresh right here, so you can treat yourself to a cup or a bag full of America's newest chip-type snack while you're watching the show. Flips, deliciously different.
Okay, we're back. And Jeff,
Yes.
this is your pick this week.
This
so
is my pick.
bring us in.
So if anybody doesn't know, Nausicaa is a movie came out in 1984. It is Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind, and it is based on, I'm going to butcher, Hayao
Hayo. Mhm.
Miyazaki,
Mhm.
who created the manga in 1982. It is not a Studio Ghibli. It was produced the year before Ghibli actually came into existence, so it was released by, what was it, Topcraft. Although a lot of people, I think, consider it a Studio
Oh,
Ghibli.
hasn't it been retrofitted into?
It has, and we'll talk about that because so my first exposure to this movie was probably 85, 86. I was in college, and I think the first U.S. release, it was actually called Warriors of the Wind.
which
It
is
was
fascinating, which
it
is
was
which is
not-
butchered, right? Butchered.
It was butchered. Like 25 minutes have been cut from it. It was not dubbed, I don't believe. I don't remember. A guy in my college had like this state-of-the-art stereo surround system. And I remember, this was where I was first exposed to anime. And this movie blew my mind the first time I saw it.
Now,
You're comparing it to Saturday morning cartoons.
You're talking about the edited version.
Yeah, it had to have been.
Warriors of the
85,
Wind.
86.
Okay.
Yeah. So I probably didn't even know what Nausicaa was until years later when it was re-released, I think in 2005, once Disney got the rights to release those and they redubbed it. And that is the version I saw and I own on DVD. So I'm not really sure how you guys saw it or what version you saw it in. I'm sure that Christina actually watched the original Japanese.
But
and there's some differences even in the translation, whether it's dubbed or subtitled. There's certain different name changes that what we'll get into. But basically, it is the story of this girl, Princess Nausicaa, and it's not Earth, but it is a planet you're told in backstory that it was 1,000 years after this great 7 days of fire, which basically destroyed civilization. And there's this toxic jungle that has giant bugs that lives in it. And we've got bad guys, Talmekians, who have these really cool airships that kind of look like bugs. And she's got this relationship with the planet kind of a thing going on where she can, I don't know. That's about all I'm going to say. Get into it.
Now, explain it to me, because I was trying to figure out if I don't think this is told necessarily, but the end of the world. Once we're introduced to this story, 1,000 years have passed from the 7 days of fire. Now, this is caused by the use of the 7 giant warriors. Now, were these weapons that man used against?
They refer to them as bioweapons, so yeah, I got the impression that they were man-made.
They're not beings upon themselves. They are weapons that men used against each other.
Correct.
Okay.
That was my take. Yes. Yeah, because there's a really strong environmental and anti-war message throughout this movie that I think is probably even more important now than it was then. So
I mean, I think if you've seen Miyazaki's other films, like this film, you can sort of see the start of so many of Miyazaki's obsessions, like flying machines, the encroachment of industrialization,
yes.
Our disconnect from nature, factions that fight to the detriment of everyone, and then of course he has a hugely pacifist character in Nausicaa. You see a lot of these themes actually, again, you can almost draw like a line to their analog in Princess Mononoke.
I was going to say
that,
I was reminiscent of Mononoke throughout this, but I thought that even for an animated movie or an anime movie, this is so striking and unique. Just the design of the giant bugs, the ohms are just awesome.
Yeah,
and
they are really cool.
Grotesque, huge, like cross between, spiders with all the eyes and fleas and
like a trilobite. I always multi-eyed trilobite.
The giant warrior that the embryo that they're trying to grow, and then it just collapses upon itself. It's revolting, disgusting, and beautiful at the same time.
Yeah, which is probably every one of his movies at some point.
I loved it.
Cool.
And I thank you for picking it. I'd never even heard of this before.
Yeah.
And I probably would have never have watched it. On one viewing, I would say that this is the favorite of any anime movie that I've seen up to this point, is this movie.
Now imagine watching this with like 25 minutes cut out of it. I can't even tell you what
well,
that
you
movie
wouldn't
was
know, right? When you saw this,
you
didn't know that.
Absolutely. No, and I was so taken aback by just the visuals of it all. Like you said, the flying glider that she's on. And there's a scene, and it's so simple in its execution, but it's just these giant Talmekian battleships flying, and they're multi-winged, so they kind of take on like a dragonfly, and it's breaking the cloud line, and she comes up and she cuts through the cloud in this little glider, and she's parallel, flying right alongside it, and it is so breathtaking and so simplistic in its execution, but it is gorgeous. And like you said, this movie's, like I said, came out in 1984. So it's been around for a long time, and you kind of see the genesis, like Christina said, of all of his other movies that kind of come after that. And a lot of these themes carry through, but out of the gate, I mean, this was, and I guess he had a really hard time because he was still in the middle of writing and drawing the manga to pare it down the story. But you just see the guys, you know, the genius level of this stuff coming through. And like you said, just the character designs, the ohms, monstrous bugs that on the outside are very hideous looking, and yet she has sympathy for them. She relates, and she can connect with these bugs and the you know, the toxic forest that everyone's so afraid of. And she's found a way that she's there's a scene where she's actually like has this underground greenhouse where she's regrowing these plants because she realized it's not the plants itself, but it's the dirt that has been contaminated and tainting the you know, the flora and the fauna itself, and she's trying to rebuild the world.
And of course, man's response to this is to destroy everything to save the world.
Yeah,
but she's trying to convince them that the world is trying to heal itself if you just leave it alone. And even the ohms, they are only violent when provoked by men.
Yeah.
So, and they're just
like the guy with the mask. Just leave me alone.
Like these bugs, these monster bugs, are almost trying to protect the forest as if they know that it's self-healing. So,
like you said, meanwhile, you know, the Talmikins are like, humans and bugs can't live side by side. We got to destroy them.
It's interesting that you talked about the manga, Jeff, because Miyazaki spent more than a decade working on this manga. And he, you know, he'd originally intended to be a manga artist, and then he realized that he didn't actually like doing it that much.
Like most of our dreams.
Yeah,
once you get into it, you're like, this is just another job.
He wanted to be an animator, and he said that I read an interview with him about the end of Nausicaa when he had finally finished writing the manga, and he said he had made, I think, 5 movies in the interim, you know, and he said that he had started to see making a film as a relief from doing the manga.
The production on this was 1 month or 9 months, by the way.
I say 1 month. That's
no, 1 month. Well, no, the animators were paid per cell, but 9 months is pretty tight to pull together an animated movie like this.
Right, and it's hand drawn. This is not the computer.
Yes, correct.
Era.
Oh yeah. Oh, I don't.
Yeah.
We didn't have that technology then. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. You know, this is probably one of the first animes I showed to Skylar, and they insisted that when I sat down to watch this again, that they watch it with me. So the two of us sat there, and it was almost like watching it again for the first time. But I don't know, Jim. Did you watch the 2005?
Yes, that's what I watched.
I was going to say that may be the only thing available.
With the all-star cast. I was so happy that Alison Lohman was in this.
Right? Like, Drag me to hell, right? Yeah. How crazy. What about Shia LaBeouf?
Shia LaBeouf.
I'm like, wait a minute. He wasn't even born until 86. How is he in this? And I'm like, oh, that was a redub in 2005. So he was only like, what, 19 at the most?
And we've got Luke Skywalker.
Yes, Mark Hamill. Ariel was in it. Jodie Benson.
Jack Skellington.
Chris Sarandon. Yeah.
Chris Sarandon.
Uma Thurman, Edward James Olmos, Patrick Stewart, which was great because you didn't even have to redub him because he didn't have a mouth.
Now, Christina, are you outraged that we watched the English dubbed version?
I mean, when my son was younger, we always watched the dubbed versions because obviously it was before he could read quickly.
Right.
So, and the Disney dubbed versions they do an okay job, I think. I mean, I don't think it's terrible. I prefer to watch the Japanese version, first of all, because that's the way it's intended.
Well, but you have, I mean, we've talked about this, which when I watch anime, I don't want to be forced to read. I want to look at the art. So just by nature, I tend to just listen to the dubbed.
Right.
But also, like anything else, the more subtitled films you watch, the more the quote unquote reading becomes subliminal. And obviously, like, we're trying to learn Japanese, so I like to listen to Japanese so I can pick up a few words here and there. I'm definitely still not even at a point where I can follow a conversation, but I'm trying. I actually appreciate slice of life anime a lot because the characters tend to talk slower. I'm like, oh, okay, I can follow this conversation.
Yeah, you don't want to
But-
go there and start asking about the toxic jungle. They'll kick you right out of the country.
It shows to me how much Disney took this seriously by putting together this cast for something that was not destined to be re-released in theaters. It was a straight to DVD release. And so I think it shows that how lovingly they put this together by choosing this, a cast of this caliber.
Yeah, and it was this movie that incensed Miyazaki so much because they butchered it for the initial U.S. release. That in subsequent movies, Princess Mononoke and when we reviewed that, we talked about it specifically. That no cuts.
This 2005 version does not have the cuts. It's
No. 2000, right. That's the one
Yeah.
thing. Right. So in order for him to release these for Disney, he demanded that it be put back together.
Right.
And any subsequent movie that he released, no cuts. You can't help but look at this and then see the influences of where J.J. Abrams went with The Force Awakens. A little Rey going on there, especially in the scene in the last one where she force heals the little sand creature or whatever.
I don't know if I see,
No.
I don't know if I see Star Wars parallel
No.
there. Yeah.
All right.
I read something where before they settled on Alison Lohman, they tried to get Natalie Portman to voice Nausicaa for
There you
this
go.
dubbed
There's
version.
your Star Wars.
There's your Star Wars
There's
tie.
your Star Wars tie-in.
I've been reading this book called Starting Point about Hayao Miyazaki, and it's basically a collection of like essays that he wrote or interviews that he gave between 1979 and 1996. And obviously there's a lot of, it's very technical, so if you love animation, I really recommend that you get this book, because a lot of times he's talking very specifically about animation technique and things that he's doing in different films and different influences on him, and things about storytelling. But there was a quote that I think is really, really relevant to this, and he said, "The animator must fabricate a lie that seems so real, viewers will think that the world depicted might possibly exist." And I think that's really relevant here, because I think if you look at Nausicaa, you can say, yep, I can see that happening. I can see that happening here. I can see us wrecking each other to the point where, we leave an irradiated wasteland behind.
Oh, yeah.
Humans are struggling to survive and bugs have taken over. That seems really plausible. So I think one of the great things about his films is that no matter how fantastic they get, there's always a plausibility factor that's behind
It's grounded. Yeah.
everything.
Well, speaking of real, there's a Japanese firm called Open Sky Aircraft, and they actually built a working glider.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want one. Like, I go to work in that thing.
It's funny how his films really exert an influence over people in real life, because there's the Totoro Forest Project as well, where people have gone out to try to preserve the region of the country where Totoro is set, so that they can, they're environmentalists. They're just trying to save some section of the country, from industrial encroachment, which is one of Miyazaki's, big fears. And
Well founded too.
yeah, and they've actually preserved what they call Totoro's forest, and a lot of the surrounding area, so that it won't get developed, and that nature can sort of exist in its own space.
We're not the only one that noticed this was released with the endorsement of the World Wildlife Fund.
Ooh.
So they recognized its potential as well. And a fun fact, the original, because as we said, it wasn't a Studio Ghibli release initially. The company that produced it was the Toei Company, I think you pronounce it. Christina, I don't know if you can help me with that.
Toei Animation. Yeah.
Yes. But they also produced 3 notable films that I noticed. Yongari, Monster from the Deep was theirs from 1967. The Green Slime from 1968, which I hope we cover someday. And then the legendary martial arts film Street Fighter with Sonny Chiba from 1974. The first film to be rated X for violence alone in the U.S.
Cool.
So we ready for buckets on this
Let's go buckets. Sure.
Jeff, you go first.
Oh, I'm going to go 4. It's a solid movie, even redubbed.
I think I will match that. I am going to go 4 as well.
Yeah, so for me, this is really good, but not my favorite. There's a lot of Miyazaki films I like better. So I'm going to say 3.75.
So there you go. If you've never seen it, go check it out.
Yeah, please do. So this brings us to our confessional.
Confessionals.
And again, just a random idea, not connected to the movies that we are reviewing this week, but it's a fun question nonetheless. On the day of your birth, what was the number one movie in the nation, and what was the number one song? And
I had to do some research.
yeah, so did I.
Actually made me work on that one. It's not like I didn't know that one off the top of my head.
All right, so who wants to go?
Go
Who's
ahead,
up
Jim.
first?
This was your question, so you might as well
Yeah.
do it.
All right, so I'll start with number one movie. It was...
What year were you born?
I'm getting ahead of myself. 1970, I was born. November 19th, 1970. So I am firmly a Scorpio in that respect.
I didn't know this would turn into a Tinder interview. Do you love rainy nights and soft fuzzy things?
I love a rainy night.
Eddie
So,
Rabbit, 1970.
number one movie, Owl and the Pussycat.
Ooh, Barbara Streisand?
Barbara Streisand, yes. I would think that you'd be more familiar with that, being such a big fan of What's Up, Doc.
Well, it wasn't like
I was expecting like
Binged
a
her oeuvre.
like a Super Bowl. Whoa, Owl and the Pussycat.
Hey-oh.
No, but this is a movie
George
that
Segal?
I actually George Segal, yes. That I actually remember, and looking at the description of this thing, it's a very salacious setup where George Segal moves into an apartment and there's a prostitute that lives in the apartment next door,
Is that Barbara Streisand?
played by Barbara
Oh,
Streisand.
now I gotta watch it.
She gets kicked out and they end up rooming together in the same apartment.
Hilarity ensues.
And hilarity ensues. They used to play this a lot on HBO. To the point where I couldn't really avoid it. So I've seen it a few times. And the most memorable aspect is the outfit that Streisand wears in the movie. And you can see it on the poster where it's like a negligee with two hands where the breasts are. So
Hold on. Now I'm Googling it.
Not to be confused with the poem The Owl and the Pussycat, which is a little bit salacious in its own right.
Oh, yeah.
because-
All the cartoon panels come up. That's pretty wild. Which came first?
Well, the poem was from, I think,
gotcha.
the 1800s, so it's definitely came first. But I remember an HBO series, there was one for art, there was one for music, there was one for poetry. Classical Baby, that was the name of it. And the poetry one was just animated bits narrated by movie stars, narrating their favorite simplistic, child-friendly poems. And The Owl and the Pussycat was one of them, and it was narrated by John Lithgow. And there's one section where he says, oh, pussy, what a beautiful pussy you are. And he says it very, very salaciously. And so I can see kind of how it turns into this weird movie with hugely sexual overtones. But the other thing from the poem that I took away was the phrase runcible spoon, which I don't think is an actual thing. I think the word runcible was just a made-up word by Edward Lear, who wrote the poem. But I always had in my mind when I heard that line, eaten with a runcible spoon, was one of those spoons with the rubber around the spoon part, feed a baby, the baby food with. But I was wrong with that. That's not what you call that. But in my mind, that's
It
what
is
you call
now.
that, a runcible spoon, yes. So that's the number one movie. The number one song was I Think I Love You by the Partridge Family.
Oh, man. That's awesome.
So, that's a pretty good song to have as the number one song for the day that you were born. So I'll take that. I'll take that one.
Was that on the day you were born or
on
that
the
year?
day that I was born?
Because I have the year and I have the day.
So the week, I guess, the Billboard chart that week, that was number one. I Think I Love You, the Partridge Family.
Cool.
By the way, a runcible spoon is a sharp-edged fork with 3 broad curved prongs. It is, in fact, not even a spoon.
Well, that's not very baby
Is it like
friendly.
a fork? I thought KFC invented those.
But
A runcible spoon is a fork.
But that must be retrofit as well, because everything that I read about this poem was that Edward Lear made up the word runcible.
Oh, yeah. No, it was coined by Edward Lear, but that's what it is. It's not a spoon. It's not a spoon.
It came into existence after
Yes.
he coined the phrase.
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, just like Lewis Carroll and like 100,000 words that he created.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
Jabberwocky.
All right, mic drop. I'm done.
We'll either have to go forward or backward now. Let's go, Christina.
Oh, we're going forward? Okay. So I was born August 13th, 1974. The number one song on my birthday, according to Billboard, was "The Night Chicago Died."
Oh my
By-
gosh!
Oh!
Oh, wow.
What?
And
What?
Yeah.
Chicago
You
Died.
made that up. That's not true.
No, it's true.
You had
By
to live there.
Paper
No?
Lace. And the number one film at the time of my birthday was Death Wish. And by the way, it costs on average $1.87 to go into the movie
Wow.
in 1987.
Does Death Wish take place in Chicago? I don't know. I don't think I've ever
No.
seen it, but
I know I've seen it, but not for a long time, so I don't think that I could say. The number one movie of the year, by the way, was Blazing Saddles.
Nice.
I assume that was a summer release. Too bad that you could have been born like a month previous, and then you had Blazing Saddles as
We
your...
could have chosen that as our.
And just fun additional trivia. I've mentioned this before that I share a birthday with Alfred Hitchcock, and also with Bert Lahr,
Ooh.
the Cowardly Lion.
All right, I guess it's my turn at this point. All right, so we're going all the way back to 1967. So, number one movie.
Wait, what's the date? What's the date?
Oh, October 4th.
October 4th.
October 4th, 1967. So I am firmly entrenched as a Libra, if you want to go down that road. Number one movie was for the year, was The Graduate. But it didn't come out until December 22nd and somehow still took the top spot.
Wow.
That's pretty
amazing.
impressive. That's pretty impressive.
Wait a second. So
yes.
repeat that. That was
The Graduate was the number one movie of the year.
Number one movie.
I went with
okay.
the year.
So I was going to say, how is that possible?
I don't know
it was
what
released
that-
in December
yeah.
and it was number one on October.
The
4th.
one thing I
Okay.
discovered, box office numbers are a little wonky once you go past 1977. Like I had to do some digging. I don't know how easy it was for you to find your dates or whatever.
Yeah, it just came up on Google, my stuff.
Yeah, well, that must be true then. Yeah, so the number one
to
movie,
fact check it.
43 million in like 12 days. So that was the number one movie. The number one song.
So you don't know what the number one movie was on the day that you were born?
No, I didn't. No, I have the song.
Should I
don't know
Google
the
this
movie.
for you right now?
Go ahead, do it.
All right,
I
tell
thought it
us
was
about the song.
apparently I thought it was for the year.
Tell us
not
about the
for the
song
actual day.
while I'm looking this up.
So the number one song on the day I was born is "The Letter" by the Box Tops.
Oh.
I actually really like that song, so now I understand maybe it was playing when I came out. I don't know.
That is sung by Alex Chilton, who went on to form Big Star, for you Big Star fans out there.
But the number one song of the year was "To Sir with Love" from Lulu.
My wife, that's her favorite movie, To Sir with Love.
"To Sir with Love."
That is the song that I played at my wedding when I danced with my dad.
Oh,
Really?
Yeah.
that's cool. So I'm the only one who discovered the top TV show was. Nielsen rating.
I didn't even look for TV show. Yeah.
All right, was the Andy Griffith Show with a
Okay.
27.6 share. And you had what, 3 channels back then? But more importantly, I know Jim's he's still researching right now. On the actual day I was born, October 4th, 1967, was a UFO incident in Nova Scotia, known as the Shag Harbor incident.
Wow.
In which multiple UFO sightings leading up to the 4th, but on the 4th there were multiple witnesses who claimed that an aircraft had crashed off the coast. But unfortunately, they did a huge search and rescue and discovered no debris. No plane was ever reported missing, and so it is
Just a
unknown.
mystery.
A mystery to this day. So I'm assuming that was the day they dropped me off. That was like my delivery stork.
I found it. I got the
dump and
number.
run. All right. So what was the number one movie?
The number
on the
one
day
movie
I was born.
on the day you were born was Bonnie and Clyde.
That's cool.
All right.
Very cool. Very cool.
That broke some
That's
records.
cooler than Death Wish.
Apparently, you're not a Charlie Bronson fan. Still not as cool as Ellen the Pussycat, though. It was interesting.
Yeah, it was.
Hallmark used to sell those little books, the year you were born, and they had like all those little tidbits in there.
You'd always find a rack of those books whenever you'd go into Cracker Barrel. I don't know if you can still get them or not.
I have never walked into a Cracker Barrel.
You've never?
I have never gone to a Cracker Barrel.
I've been in a Cracker Barrel one time in Indiana, and I will never do it again. So,
You know,
if you're
this
gonna go to
was-
Cracker Barrel, Indiana is the place to go.
When I used to drive to Florida, I don't drive to Florida anymore, but whenever we would take our yearly or biannual Disney trip, we would always stop at the same Cracker Barrel right on the Florida-Georgia border.
I can't believe you would drive south and go to a Cracker Barrel instead of a Waffle House.
Waffle House.
Check your arteries at the door. That was
What
fun.
are we doing next week?
Holy crap! Do you know what we're doing next week? This is big.
You should know because we've been talking about it for 6 months.
Exactly. If we weren't talking Mulan, we were talking this movie. One of us has already seen it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And you were.
And her lips are sealed.
They're sealed. I
Good.
can't wait to talk about it with you guys, but yes.
So, if anybody doesn't know, Tenet. We are finally seeing Tenet in the theater. Once again, Jim and I have to jump border.
Yep.
We will
I keep
probably
being
do so.
afraid that you guys are going to get stopped by a trooper at the border. Did you go to a movie?
Where you been? Where you been, boy? Is that popcorn butter on your chin?
The Connecticut State Police. You a New Yorker, boy?
That's right.
You a long way from home.
You one of those movie guys? Well, you got like a podcast. I despise you guys. So there you go. We're pairing this up with Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Is that correct? Did I get that right?
Yes.
Now, is this
Yeah,
film...
there's a lot of T's going on next week.
I was going to say, is this film a lesson in diction? Is this all about how to pronounce things like rubber, baby, buggy, bumpers, Tinker Tailor, soldier, spy? Say it 10 times fast.
Do we get to count how many times they actually say those 4 words?
Uh,
Do they say it at all?
They do.
Tinker
You know,
Tailor.
you know it's from the rhyme, right?
No,
Kids
I have
rhyme.
no clue. I don't know what that is. I guess
You
I'll find out
joking?
when I... No, I don't know what that is.
You don't know that kid's rhyme?
No, I do not.
Tinker, tailor, soldier, sailor, rich man, poor man, beggar man, thief. You don't
Nope.
know that rhyme?
Nope. Nope.
Okay.
Nope.
Never mind.
Now,
Aliens
without-
dropped me off. They did not teach me that.
right. Now, Christina, without
Yeah.
giving anything away, you
Yeah.
chose
No.
this. You suggested
Oh,
this co-feature before you saw Tenet.
Yes.
That is true.
Now that you've seen Tenet,
I don't even want to
does
know.
it make less sense? Does it make more
I don't want to know.
sense?
I don't want to know.
No, I still think it's a good pair.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Mhm.
Because what else is she going to say, Jim?
No, giving nothing away, I would still say it's a good pair. Yeah.
Fair enough.
Mhm.
And it's on
Fair enough.
Netflix, so if you want to watch along with us.
Yes.
Or better yet, jump the border, go to the movies.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Connecticut's the only, well, if you're in the tri-state area, Connecticut is the only place you can go to.
And if I understand this correctly, I think where we're going, which is in Danbury, is only one of 2 locations
Yeah.
in Connecticut.
The other one's in Hartford.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So thankfully it's sort of accessible to us, so we'll be there.
Only a day trip. Good thing I'm on vacation.
All right, so there you have it.
Mulan. We saw it.
And you probably did too. So
I like to think so.
thanks for listening as always.
Yes, as always, thank you very much.
Hope you
you.
come back. next
Enjoy your
week.
week, and yeah, we'll be back here next week. Good time.
Bye.
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 Hello, everybody. If you liked the podcast you just heard, then please follow TMI on all of our social media outlets. First and foremost, email us at tmipodcast2018@gmail.com. That is tmipodcast2018@gmail.com.
And you can follow us on Twitter at TMI_podcast2018. Stop over, say hi, give us a compliment. We'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. Make sure you follow us on Instagram as well, which is also TMI_podcast2018.
And of course, we are on Facebook, facebook.com/TMI Podcast 2018. And it should be noted, we also have a community page, so join the forum.
And if you like to watch YouTube, you can see us at TMI Podcast 2018, all one word. Look for the popcorn bucket.
Popcorn bucket. Or you could just go to our website, which has every link there, TMIConfessionalspodcast.com. And we'll see you at the concession stand.
We'll save some popcorn for you.
Roll, runs.